You are listening to the Lawyer Stories podcast with host Benny Gold. Lawyer Stories was founded in July 2017 on Instagram and is an expanding global network of lawyers and law students sharing their personal journeys to the noble profession of the practice of law. Join us on this podcast as we dig deeper into these stories and hear from lawyers and law students from around the world in all areas of the legal profession. Here at Lawyer Stories, we believe that every lawyer has a story. What's yours?
Welcome to the Lawyer Stories podcast with Benny Gold, episode 34. Today we welcome in Aaron Sadiq. How are you, sir?
Great, Benny. How's it going, man?
Good, man. Coming to us from Bedford, Texas this evening.
Yeah, for those of you who don't know, that's right in between Dallas and Fort Worth.
Yeah, man. So cheers to you. Thanks for being with us. We appreciate it. And what are you sipping on tonight, man?
Tonight went with a nice TX bourbon. So I don't know if you guys have that where you're at, but
very nice. Go ahead. Did you want to?
Yeah, just say that they're a local maker here in Texas, and normally I sip on their blends. Tonight I decided to try bourbon, so it's pretty good.
Nice, man. I got some Larceny. Goes along with the Lawyer Stories theme, Larceny bourbon.
Absolutely. Actually, I have some of that at the house.
Yeah, good stuff, man. So, yeah. All right, let's start off. We're happy to have you. You have a very interesting story. It's a pleasure to have you here. And so tell us, like, where were you born and raised? Where are you from?
Yeah, so I grew up in Texas in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Was born here, and my father, he's an immigrant. He's from Pakistan, came back in '68. And oddly enough, Richard Nixon was his favorite president. Only time I saw my dad cry was when Nixon died. When Nixon died, it was really weird.
Really?
And then yeah, and then my mom's from Michigan, so they wound up in Texas. That's where I was born and grew up.
Wow. Okay, and you've been there for a while, except for you went to law school in Miami, which we'll get to in a minute. So, because that was probably like a good time, I'm guessing. So, all right. So, born and raised in Texas. So you went to school at UT Austin, like you wanted to stay in state. So, like, what was that experience like? Like, did you know you wanted to be a lawyer? Like, I guess one of the questions, I'll just get right to it, that I like to ask is like, when did you know? Did you know like that you want to be a lawyer at UT, or was it further on?
You know, I thought I wanted to be a lawyer when I was at UT. So really where I thought I would go with it was that I would wind up being a lobbyist of some sort. So okay. Austin being capital of Texas, I thought would provide me with some opportunities. And UT was just it is a difficult school to get into if you're from Texas. They have like a 10% rule. So usually the folks that are outside of the top 10% of their class have a tough time getting in. So I had scholarship offers elsewhere, OU, Texas Tech. I wound up picking UT, started early. And by the time I graduated, I was just kind of burnt out on all things government and law. So I kind of...
What was your major there?
My major was government, and then I did a foundations in business, which was through the Macomb School of Business. They didn't let us folks that weren't in that particular school within the school get the full degree or even make it a minor, but it was more than a minor, less than a major.
Right. Yeah, I've heard that before. Okay.
But so my senior year, I took the LSAT just kind of to do it. I'm like, hey, if I walk in there, don't study for it, and my scores come back super high, Rain Man, we're going to Harvard. But
we're going to
obviously,
Harvard.
Yeah, obviously that didn't happen.
All right. But so it didn't happen, but you still scored well enough to say, hey, like, I'm going to go to this school in Miami, right? Like that you decided. Did you take any time off after undergrad?
I did. Yeah. So I, my family of entrepreneurs, my dad, he was an electrical engineer, second career commercial real estate guy. And so I always knew one thing for certain, I didn't want to work for anyone else. So I tried my hand at business right out of undergrad. Wound up working for my dad for a bit, which is funny because I showed up to work on a Friday. He said, I need to talk to you Sunday. No heads up. Sunday, I'm living in his house, mind you, just having graduated college. He's like, hey, man, Monday you're fired. You need to find something else to do.
How long did you work for him for?
About 8 months.
You would wait. So let me get this straight. You were like a government major, but you worked for an electrical engineer?
No, he had transitioned at this point into commercial real estate.
Okay, so that would have been. I would have been like, I could see getting fired because lawyer. So okay.
Yeah, so he fires me. I go out into the world, start making my way. Guy I used to work for in high school was doing some investing. He had sold 10 of his commercial properties and businesses. So he had burning a hole in his pocket. We wound up, this was like the worst time to do this, but we wound up acquiring foreclosed commercial properties in and around 2007, 2008.
Oof.
And got stuck with them. So I wound up we wound up having to open up various retail businesses in these strip centers and these sites that we had across Dallas and Fort Worth.
Okay.
And I wound up working probably 70 hours a week, Monday through Saturday, no days off, out of the house by 5:30, at home after 7 p.m. Young guy, still maintaining my social life.
So what were you doing like during that time, like during those hours?
Yeah, so we wound up opening a series of dry cleaners in these facilities. So 3 of the stores we bought were actually closed down dry cleaning plants.
Okay.
That was his previous business. So we did that. We opened up a few Boost Mobile franchises, just kind of things to keep the mortgage being paid that we were familiar with. Got burnt out, and my sister had actually already made her way through law school.
Okay.
And she had opened a title company, was servicing my dad's clients, doing really well.
Oh, okay.
Like, maybe it's time to revisit this thing.
Where did she go to law school?
She went to law school at what's now Texas A&M School of Law. It was Texas Wesleyan at the time.
Okay, word.
Here in Fort Worth. So during the operation of these businesses, actually, so being an attorney had kind of floated in and out of my mind, hadn't made up my mind yet. My parents, my dad being Pakistani, they're all about you're either a doctor, you're either a lawyer, or you're a failure.
And you were just you were grossed out by anything medical, right? Like that's kind of like me, man. Like I can't stop. I don't know how I walk into a hospital. I don't know how these people do it. So congratulations to everybody in the medical field. I have a lot of I don't know. I'm really proud of all the people out there.
Yeah.
I give them a lot of credit.
Man, I can't do it. Like in going back to middle school, dissecting frogs and whatnot.
Yeah. You chose the alternative to dissecting the frog, right? Like you wrote the paper instead.
Yeah, man. And so, so that's the parents are pushing me. I'm in a business now that I don't enjoy because it wasn't working out the way that we thought it would. I thought I'd bust out of undergrad and money would be raining from the sky and I'd have my Lambo by 27, but it just didn't happen.
Yep.
And we ended up getting sued. I got sued personally.
Right.
I guess I was 24, 25 years old. One of the properties we had acquired had an existing tenant. And instead of going, cutthroat, ruthless, hey, you're on a month-to-month lease, you're out of here, we're just going to reopen your same business when you're out. We operated with integrity, and we offered to purchase this woman's business from her. And long story short, it was my first taste of legitimate litigation. So the day we took over her business, the sales were 25% of what they were, that she was representing to us. And she had owner financed a small portion back to us. So she sued us on that note. We sued her back for fraud. She's saying all these crazy things. And I'm sitting there going, are you kidding me? Like, you can say these things in a lawsuit? Now that I've been practicing, for a while.
Was this a laundromat or no?
It was. Okay. And so, it was just.
And you were saying so I didn't cut you off. So you were saying she was saying all these things in a lawsuit. I was like, I can't believe you could say all these things, but now that I'm an attorney, you could do it. Like
you can do it, man. You can absolutely do it. So that was like the final straw, right? 70 hours a week, doctor, lawyer, failure, getting sued. I'm like, it's time. The universe is telling me I need to do this. Whether I'm an entrepreneur, I'm in some other business, which I am. I do a bunch of other stuff, but I knew that I didn't want to get sued again. I wanted to be doing the suing. So
yeah.
So within a year, I had applied to a couple of places, and actually, the reason I picked Miami, wanted to get out of Texas, but my cousin, who
it's sort of like LeBron James, right, man? Like you
right.
wanted to, you never had, you wanted to go experience like something else, so you went to Miami, and then
took my talents to South Beach.
You took your talents to South Beach just for a few years, and then you rolled back to Texas. Okay, so tell me about. Within a year, you were in law school. So you actually had the experience. You had to hire an attorney for this incident you had, like this litigation. And then you went to South Beach. What was that like?
I mean, it was amazing. It was like, honestly, for me, coming from conservative Texas, it was like moving to another country. And I, I'd applied all over, and I said, I'm going to go to the coolest place that I get accepted to.
Yeah,
not the best place.
That's great. Wow, that's awesome. How many years out of college? So you were like a few years out of college, though, right?
I was, yeah. So I was 20. I guess I was 26. So
So that's super smart. You were like, I'm going to like the coolest place I could. But it's also kind of like tough because you have to study hard in law school, but you're like, I'm going to like the dopest place I get into. Right.
But, that's the thing. It was when you're working 70 hours a week. It's straight punishment, man. So when you get to go back to school after that experience, you're going, I'm going to treat it like a 9 to 5, which I'm still basically working 20 hours less a week.
So I don't mean to cut you off, but I think that's a huge point for like a lot of people to know that like when you work, I took a year off after out of undergrad and worked, and then went back to law school after a year, but you took 4. And I think like one thing to learn and to gather out of that is like, you learn what like a working day was like.
Mm-hmm.
Like how to manage your time, that like there's a 9 to 5. So like, if you treat a job like a 9 to 5, like I know you're working many more hours in the real estate business, but people who go from college, and this is the majority of the people, to law school, I don't think they have that kind of like, maybe they don't have that experience of knowing what it's like to have that job and the time management skills, right?
Yeah. And so, whether you get that experience on the front end before law school or after law school, you're going to learn it. So, a lot of the people that I was in law school with who were 4 years younger than me that had come straight out of undergrad, they didn't know what to expect going back out into the real world necessarily into their first job. But I think after 4 years, we were probably on a pretty, post-graduation from law school, we were on a pretty even playing field, but it helps. I mean, in undergrad, I was, the chronic underachiever guy, 18 years old, living in my first apartment, wanted to party, didn't want to get good grades or study, and was at this big university where you're just a number. And when I went back to law school, I was determined to apply myself and actually see what I could do if I tried, right? Everybody says, if I could go back and do it over again, I would be the valedictorian of high school. It was so easy. But I got an opportunity to give it a whirl and see what I could actually do, having matured a little bit, a little bit.
Right. But you still had fun, like some fun in Miami?
My God, man, I had too much fun. Like it was crazy. Our barrister balls, like the first barrister ball we had was in downtown Miami during Ultra, and we're like coming out of the Mandarin Oriental Hotel, and there's just kids everywhere with glow sticks on ecstasy, and I'm just going, law school is awesome. Like the welcome back parties were at the dopest clubs. They were always DJ'd. Like everybody that was local that I went to school with, they were just the coolest kids, man.
Oh man, it's Miami's something else, dude. Like we have a good in Lawyer Stories, we have a good Florida community, and actually we had our first Lawyer Stories networking event before COVID hit. This was like 2019, January 3rd in Miami. So it was like a lot of fun. It was a co-hosted event. So actually, like, is it safe to say that like what happened with the laundromat was like sort of a silver lining because you ended up going to law school, right? So it was a shitty situation, pardon my language, but you ended up going back, or you ended up going back to school. And
yeah, absolutely. It was that final straw. and absolutely fair to say. I think that having gone to law school, and you know this, no matter what your class looks like, no matter what your background is, once you get into law school, they're not necessarily teaching you how to be a lawyer. They're teaching you how to think like a lawyer.
Right.
And I do all types of things right now. I do real estate development. I'm building office buildings. I have oil and gas investments. I have an online real estate class where we talk about commercial real estate. But I think the thing that's helped me be successful in all of that was the real estate. Was the legal training, was learning how to dissect these problems and learning how to approach it and think like a lawyer. It really gives you a competitive advantage. I tell people all the time, if you're choosing between an MBA and a JD, you don't have to be a lawyer to get what you need out of your JD. Go to law school. It's an extra year, whether you sit for the bar or not. It's opened a lot of doors for me. Just saying, hey, I'm an attorney. People pick up the phone. People invite you in. There's this inherent trust in that, and I think it's been an amazing tool for me.
Right. So you get your JD and you go back. You didn't think about taking the Florida bar. You just went back to Texas, right?
Well, so you heard me describe getting sued, being a little bit wild in undergrad. So naturally, things you don't think about when you decide to go to law school are getting admitted to a state bar.
Right.
So when I started comparing Florida and Texas and the time taking to apply to the bar and getting your background check and all that, I knew I wanted to do both, but I went the Texas route first because it was just a little bit less of a stigma around the bar examiners admitting you. And it still took a little bit of time. I had to deal with all of the lawsuit stuff and explain myself and deal with all the unwinding of the business and all of that stuff. But it ultimately worked out pretty quick. I went back after that. I was admitted in Texas in 2012. And then I went back, studied for the Florida bar exam and took that and passed it. Passed them both first try.
Oh, really? Okay. So you're admitted in Florida?
Admitted in Florida, admitted in Texas. And, also the other thing was going to law school in Florida and then coming back to Texas to take the bar. I knew I was going to have to learn. We were going to be tested on oil and gas and a number of other subjects that we just didn't learn in Florida. And while I was kind of coming fresh out of school and I was in that mode, I figured it'd be easier to go back and do it in the route that I did.
That's awesome. So you just did that right in one shot, sort of like
and crazy story. While I was taking the Florida bar exam in Tampa, there was a massive water spout, like a water tornado in the bay next to the convention center. They told no one. We come outside after the first day of the exam and just stuff is strewn everywhere. I'm like, what is going on? We heard the storm, but didn't tell anybody, man. We saw it on the news, this big tornado looking thing next to the convention center. Okay.
That's crazy. So what was your first job like in Texas? Like when you went back to Texas, like give us like sort of the story leading up to when you founded your firm.
So, the chronological order of things is a little, abstract. So I'll try to walk you through it. But when I was in law school, I clerked for a felony criminal judge. Really the approach I took to leading up to founding my firm and the practice areas we focus in was let's kind of go through a process of elimination. What do I not like? Realized I did not like criminal law within the first 2 minutes of sitting in this South Florida judge's office. We came out for arraignment. We can circle back around to the story if we have some time. It's pretty crazy. I was shocked. I'm like, I am not gangster enough to be here right now. But
okay.
So wound up working after that experience, wound up getting an internship with a firm called Dell and Schaefer. And they've been around South Florida for a long time. They have a huge nationwide disability practice. And so I started working with them my 2L year part-time, worked there all my 3L year, and then they agreed to hire me on after law school.
Good.
So I told them I was going back to take the Texas bar, so they let me go. I studied in Florida, actually. I studied from my condo there because it was right on the beach and I had a view of the water. And so I studied for my condo, went and took the bar exam in Texas, came back to Florida, started working. So they moved me out of kind of their pre-litigation department where I was just working on demands and writing criminal motions. They did criminal, personal injury, and disability insurance law.
Okay.
And they moved me into their litigation department where I started working. It's kind of where I learned all the discovery, you know, how to respond to discovery responses, all the stuff you kind of think you're learning in law school, but don't really know how to do till someone drops it on you.
Right.
And then had an opportunity to come back. So I mentioned earlier that my sister was practicing and was now out on her own, and thought it was time to kind of go back to Texas. So I left Dell & Schaefer, went back, synced up with my sister, started working.
After how long was that? How long were you at Dell & Schaefer?
I started there in 2010, and I left there at probably 2012, 2013, and came back to Texas, started working with my sister, and really, you know, we were focused on the real estate, and then it kind of evolved in this thing where we kind of had two separate firms, but we were just kind of co-working on cases together. And, you know, fast forward from about 2014 was when I founded the firm to today. When COVID hit, I was doing a couple of things. I was working on these cases. I was working with a big commercial real estate firm, not law firm, and started getting call after call after call. And I was reading this book, The Alchemist. I read it every once in a while.
I read that. Yeah.
And so,
Coelho.
Yeah. So there's this.
Dude, this is crazy, man. But I'm reaching over to my bookshelf right here. The Alchemist.
There it is, man. Good old Paulo
Coelho. Coelho. Somebody's going to call me out for getting his name wrong, but
we'll both get called out. But listen, you read the book, right? There it is. So if you have not read this book, people that are listening, you go get this book today. If you're in a transition in your life, you can pick it up, read it 6 months apart, read it 2 years from now. You'll pick something else up. So I'm sitting there the night before. I'm reading this book, and there's a saying in there. They start talking about how, you know, when you are trying to fulfill your destiny, for lack of a better term, the universe will conspire to make that happen. It'll send you messages. But if you stop listening, then it'll stop sending messages, right? So the next morning, I go sit down in my office, phone rings, new client. Okay, sign up a new client, hang up the phone. 10 minutes later, the phone rings. Okay, potential new client, sign up a new client. This happens all morning. And that was between 9 and 11:30, 4 new clients. So I get up, I'm like, man, this is crazy. And I'm thinking about what I read last night. I'm like, okay. So I go to leave, go get something to eat, phone rings again. 5 new clients in one morning, you know, not pushing it, not expanding, not growing. And so it was at that moment, after having read that passage in the book the night before, that I said, well, it's time to blow the roof off this thing. I've been sitting on it too long. So leased a whole bunch of new office space, took on a lot of overhead. And that was, you know, right after COVID started, probably over the summer sometime, got in the new office in September, October. And it's been going gangbusters ever since. It's absolutely crazy.
So this is your own firm. So do you have anybody, what's your staff like? Do you have some people working for you? Or?
Yeah. So just hired on another litigation attorney, have 2 assistants, and have 1 person answering the phones. We're looking for another full-time paralegal. And I've committed to hiring another attorney, a second attorney in July. So it's going to be a new attorney. She's taking the bar exam. She's been interning for me. She's great. So I'm also rolling out TV ads, doing 160 of those a month, starting in March. We have the radio going.
You're on the Lawyer Stories podcast. I mean,
I'm on the Lawyer Stories podcast. Man, I know I'm going to get, once this thing goes live, the phone's not going to stop ringing.
Hey, we're going to push it, man. We're going to push it for you, brother. We'll do what we can to get you out there. So like
Stone Cold Benny Gold, man, making it happen.
Wow, I like that. Stone Cold Benny Gold. Wow. So tell me, how long have you been in your own firm now? I apologize if you said this already.
No, so really going back to about 2014, my sister and I kind of co-founded one. We each had our separate practices. So I've been working kind of on my own in a limited capacity since 14, and then rebranding and coming out as the Sadiq firm, the Wolf of Law Street, baby. You heard it first here, trademark. Y'all don't come after me on that one. The Wolf of Law Street. So
okay.
we started that just a few months ago on the rebrand, but the base law firm's been the same since 14.
14. Okay. So you've been around a while, huh? All right.
Yeah, but not pushing it. So basically only referrals, no marketing, no advertising.
So now you're really
pumping in. Yeah. So I made the decision to kind of roll in on the wave of all this new business to kind of pump the money into the marketing and advertising. And
how do you think they're finding you if you weren't doing like advertising?
Yeah, so the good old fashioned way, working really hard for the clients and
word of mouth.
Word of mouth.
Yep.
My sister also founded a title company, so we were getting a lot of real estate referrals from the title company. She was closing 75, 100 to 125 transactions a month. So with that volume of people coming through the office, naturally, when they need legal representation, they're like, "Well, who's the last?" If they don't know an attorney, you'd be surprised how many.
Your sister has her own firm, though, right?
She has her own firm, and she has a title company.
Yes.
And so we were co-officing at the time, and so just tons of people, tons of referrals, personal referrals.
So one thing I'm personally curious about, I know you're taking on cases to do with social media law. So like, I want to know about that. Like what's going on with that?
Yeah. So a few years ago, I had a good friend of mine. He got quite popular on Instagram. He's got an amazing story. He's a diabetic, and he got really sick and wound up figuring out, hey, he had type 2 diabetes, started working out, became a professional bodybuilder, and has over 1 million followers on Instagram. He competes. He's a professional in the physique competition. So
we should probably tag him in our when we do our post.
We'll tag him. It's Jason Poston. So at Jason Poston Pro. So he started getting a lot of endorsements and contracts, and he reached out and he's like, "Hey, can you help me? Can you take a look?"
Very good.
I'm like, "Sure." So started working on it, and man, it is absurd. Some of these contracts he's getting from multi-million-dollar companies look like, this is not me being just a dickhead or facetious. Like, they look like they were written in crayon. I'm like, you cannot sign this, man. Like, not just for you. They shouldn't be giving this to anyone to sign in the first place.
You make a very interesting point, and like I read it in something that you had written, that like the contracts are changing with our social media, and like we have to be able to like stay on top of that, because what we're doing on social media, it does kind of like bind a contract. I mean, a lot of the stuff is contractual. I mean, it's basic, contracts, offer, acceptance, consideration. Like it's.
Yeah, absolutely. So you have this, the law moves a lot slower than society does. So you have social media, you have these new paradigms and mediums that are just proliferating all the time. TikTok, whatever. The next big thing is on its way. And then you have old school contract law, like you said, the principles hold true, but you know how we rock as millennials, man. Okay, let's get our side hustle on. I'm not worried about the legal.
I'm not a millennial, but I appreciate that. If you were referring to me, I do appreciate that.
I'm not either. I'm just trying to sound cool.
Us millennials gotta stay together though, man. Like that's.
Listen, man, you gotta know your audience right now. So, So literally, I think it's not being taken seriously, and there's just a lot of legal pitfalls on both sides.
Okay.
This became very clear to me when one of the clients I started advising, not Jason, different client, they had built, essentially it was two partners. One was the face, okay? One was the influencer, and she had he, I mean, we signed a settlement agreement, so you can see where this is going. But
Okay.
this person had quite a few followers, great story, had partnered with another client of mine. They built the business together, the business side of things, not just the face, but somebody was going to get the book deals. Somebody was helping, write the stories. Someone was dealing with all the people on the back end and the computer programmers and the marketing teams. And then the other person's posting. And that's a very difficult way to build a business when one person can walk at any given moment and they are the entire face of it. That's what influencers and these brands are built on.
Right.
So we got involved in a litigation matter, and I realized like nobody is paying attention to these things. These contracts that I'm looking at over here, these problems, they're novel, they're new, they're not going anywhere, they're only going to get worse. And so started just putting it out there that if you're an influencer, if you're someone who's getting paid for a post, if you're doing a contract, I mean, you're talking about intellectual property. You're talking about licensing.
I was going to ask you that. Does that lead into IP at all?
Absolutely. I mean, you're talking about IP. Who owns the IP? If you're paying me to make a post, are these things addressed appropriately? How are you paying me? There are so many different areas of law and contract law that just smash together here, and people are handing out these, crazy simple contracts. And we as lawyers tend to overcomplicate things, but for a reason, because shit always goes wrong. It always does.
Yeah.
And
that's why
so
we're here.
Yeah, so we've been able to do a lot of good things and look at a lot of stuff for Jason. I learned a lot with him as my first big client there, and he was a busy guy. I had a lot of endorsements coming through, and there's a lot of money to be made. There's also a lot of money to be lost on both sides, whether you're the influencer or the person paying them. So it's been a wild ride the last, I'd say 2.5 years, just kind of riding the wave.
It's got to be kind of interesting though, because it is really a new frontier. So you get to sort of be at the development and like the early stages of that. Absolutely.
So it's, and I've searched, there's not a lot of people doing what I do out there right now. So it's good and it's bad, because with that, there's no really defined, there's not a clear-cut definition of social media influencer law. We do so much, and there was something I hadn't even thought about the other day. I was so focused on helping folks with their contracts and staying out of trouble and the IP and who owns this, and if we unwind it, and let's say you're paid to post for XYZ brand, and you're a ultra religious influencer, right? You're like Christian pop star. I'm just making up a good old fashioned law school hypothetical. And, this restaurant pays you to make a series of posts for them. And then the restaurant comes out and says something that's just totally antithetical to your whole belief system and your entire base. Right. You become an influencer because people like what you're selling or buying your message. Now here is a company that you're stating that you endorse, and they're talking about some shit that's totally off in left field, that's against all of your religious views and beliefs. Is there a paragraph that addresses that in your contract? Can they keep your posts up that you've made endorsing them up in perpetuity? So reputation becomes really important. These things that are not addressed in a traditional contract setting.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah,
that you have to address.
If they change their tune to what you are actually, it's almost like if you relied on them, like sort of being a certain way, but then they went a different way. Yeah, you've posted and it's perpetuity, like you said. Like, what do you do?
The internet's forever, man. People you see this stuff all the time. Me too. Somebody said something in 2011 that is not going to fly in 2021, and they're digging up old posts, and all of these things have to be anticipated. It's fun money, people are making a ton of money on YouTube, but there's somebody's got to be watching out for them. And so we're working very hard to,
that's interesting. And I think that law will evolve, and it's great to be there, because, you'll be a part of that as it goes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good stuff. So like, you're an entrepreneur, right? So like, I would consider you an entrepreneur. Like, do you have other side businesses, like side things that you're working on? Like, maybe you could tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So, kind of learning the tricks of the trade in real estate was always my first passion, and law has come in a close second, and now I'd say we're tied. But I heard something a long time ago. You can't really, it's hard to accumulate wealth as an attorney. And so I always, always had fun with the real estate thing. So I've been developing some real estate. Right now I'm working on a 40,000 square foot office building with a couple of partners. And
wow, really?
Medical office building, yeah, here in Dallas. And $6.5 million project to build, and definitely a weird time to be doing that. But we're forging ahead. We're looking at other deals. So that's kind of how I invest. And honestly, it sounds corny. I have my hobbies are building and learning. And
well, no, I mean, it goes back to what you were doing prior to real estate. So, I mean, you're just taking your legal knowledge and, aside from PI, social media, like you're going back and connecting it to real estate. So I don't think it sounds corny at all. That's kind of
I'm working on investing into an evolving pizza franchise here in Dallas-Fort Worth.
Nice.
Got that deal cooking. Made some oil and gas investments, formed an investment group to do private oil and gas deals. It's called Quick Trigger Minerals. So it's me and a group of guys, and some of my clients I've advised oil and gas folks in the past, and they show up with deals, and I know what to look for and what not to look for. So we do some of that. And then on the real estate side of things, just have a whole host of knowledge. So my sister and I formed a company called the Residential to Commercial Academy. So if you're in residential real estate, either as primarily an agent or a broker or an investor, and you want to learn how to transact a commercial deal, we put together a whole program with all the documents, forms, leases, commercial contracts, letter of intent. And then there's a video course. It's about 5-6 hours that kind of is our brain dump.
That's awesome. That's cool. That sounds good. So what do you do like outside of being an attorney and having these entrepreneurship? Like what do you if you have any time? I mean, it doesn't sound like you.
Yeah. So I sit on the board of a nonprofit.
Yep.
And it's in the memory of my late brother, who's my younger brother. Actually, going back to law school, my 1L year, he was diagnosed with a brain tumor.
Right.
And wound up having surgery. So I left. Ryan. Yeah. So I left about 2 weeks before finals, my second semester, first year, and spent time with him in the hospital while he had surgery, and came back the day before finals. So I didn't study much. I think that would be the only one of the only C's I ever got in law school. But yeah, so fast forward, he wound up recovering from that surgery, and I was fortunate enough when I moved home after law school, we were living together, and we got to spend almost a full year together. He fell ill, got another brain tumor, spent 8 months actually fighting, and lost his battle. So he was a tremendous athlete, college golfer. He played for the University of Texas, Dallas. He was trying to go pro at the time he got sick, lining up sponsors. So we started hosting a memorial golf tournament. One of his teammates, Richard Eisman, who's the president of the scholarship fund, came to us and said, I know you guys are hurting, but we can do some good in his name. And he also suffered from epilepsy.
Okay.
There's not a whole lot of college students that survive these serious brain tumors, right? Their quality of life is affected, but there are a lot of folks with epilepsy that could use money and help and support. So we became one of the only, if not the only, scholarship to provide scholarships exclusively to students with epilepsy. So Epilepsy Foundation of Texas reached out to us. We've done some co-sponsorship stuff, but I spent a lot of time fundraising and working on the charity and raising money. And that's definitely rewarding. I actually have 2 young daughters now.
Really? Congratulations. How old?
Well, I got a 6-year-old and I have a 4-year-old. And so interestingly enough, my oldest daughter met my brother in passing. He was going to heaven and she was coming down. They were a week apart. So she was born a week after he passed away. So she got his name. So she's Emma Ryan. She's named after him. But
that's nice. I'll tell you what, her middle name's Ryan.
Yeah, but I'll tell you what, I thought I was going to be like a cool parent, you know, stay in uptown Dallas, like push my kid around in a stroller, still go out to the bars, get a babysitter. I mean, 8 months in, I'm like, I'm out. I'm headed for the suburbs, man. I can't do it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I hear you. It's a life changer.
Yeah.
That's great, man. That's great.
Yeah.
Congratulations. And that's such a great tribute to your brother to be able to name your daughter, her middle name, Ryan. I love that.
Yeah, it was fitting. So, and she's got his personality too, which is interesting. You know, it's like not one of those things you say, you see it coming out. I'm like, man, that's my brother right there.
Right. So Aaron Sadiq. So is there anything else that you'd like to tell the Lawyer Stories community? Hopefully they're listening this long because it's been a great time talking to you. So like, is there anything else, or like, can you tell everybody how to contact you?
Sure. Yeah. You guys can contact me through my website. It's tsflegal.com. You can email me actually directly. It's just aaron@tsflegal.com. If you guys have any questions about social media influencer law, or want to collaborate, or want to pick my brain, I'm happy. You know, want to contribute to the community. Benny, thank you for having me on and giving me the opportunity.
Thank you, man. It's awesome. And again, I love the pictures in the background, man. Biggie and Tupac, dope.
Yeah, these guys, they're two of the earliest influencers, right? East Coast, West Coast. Totally.
Love the crowns, dude.
Are you a Biggie guy or a Tupac guy?
Oh, geez, that's a tough question. I mean, I like some from both, so I actually never really decided which one I am, but I like.
You were third coast. You were right down the middle, just like Texas.
I mean, dude, I'm from Maine, you know, so I don't really have to pick a coast. I'm just like northern and way up north. But hey, thanks for joining us, man. I'm just going to sign us off. If you want to stick around for a minute. Yeah, Aaron Sadiq, check him out. If you wanted to get in touch, he left his email address, or just contact Lawyer Stories, _stories on Instagram. Wherever you are in the world today.
Enjoy. Oh, guys. Yeah. Wait, one more.
What do we got?
Everybody has to have a mantra, okay?
That's right.
I don't know if you can see this. You see it?
Every day I'm hustling. There you go.
That's how we sign off.
That's how we sign off. Wherever you are in the world today, enjoy yourselves.
The Lawyer Stories podcast is produced by Marketing the Law. Are you looking at your social presence every day? Potential clients are. Learn how to magnetize your brand with the help of Marketing the Law. Find us on Instagram @Marketing the Law to learn more.